I'm Karen Smith, Executive Director of the Penobscot Marine Museum, and I'm excited to be here for our first Member Monday of this winter. We have some beautiful sunshine here in Searsport, and it's been a rare sight. So we're thrilled that you're joining us here via Zoom, and then we will eventually make the video available to the public as well. We thank you for your support as members, and we love this chance to give you kind of a behind the scenes peek while we're mostly closed to the public for the season. I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard about our ambitious plan to restore Big Jim. In fact, I know a number of you have donated generously to the project, and we're very thankful for that. We are excited to share more information today about how we came up with this wild idea, how we're making it happen, and why we decided to do it. In terms of where this all began, I'm not sure what I would say about that. For a long time, our staff and our board and other volunteers have wondered, how could we draw more attention to our campus here at the Penobscot Marine Museum? We're right along heavily traveled Route 1, but we tend to get overlooked. And I think sometimes a little bit in jest, we've said, we need something like Big Jim, like the big sardine man that will just stop people and make them see that we're here. And then as we started looking at ideas for exhibits and looking to develop an exhibit about the sardine industry, we thought, well, maybe this isn't just a silly idea, but maybe it's something that we should try to do. Over the last several years, we worked to develop our Sardineland exhibit, which opened last year and continues through this year. And we imagined as we started building it that perhaps Big Jim could be a part of it. To create the exhibit, we really wanted to get out in the community and learn from the people who had been part of the herring fishery and the sardine industry for nearly 2 centuries along the coast of Maine. So we interviewed individuals, we held dialogue sessions up and down the coast, and we drew heavily from our own collections to bring together the stories of this incredible industry that has shaped our state in so many different ways. So we began to think then seriously about Big Jim. What if we could bring him to Searsport and he could be part of the exhibit? What if we could put him right at the front of our campus, kind of in the vicinity of our flagpole, about the same height, 40 feet high, and he would stand there to draw people to our Sardineland exhibit, to bring attention to the Penobscot Marine Museum, and also to put Searsport on the map after we'd just gone through several very challenging years of Route 1 road construction. It would be a fun way to kind of welcome the community back, welcome visitors back to the community with quite a bit of fanfare. So we had hoped originally that he would go up as we opened Sardineland at the beginning of our 2025 season. But as you can imagine, if you want to put a 40-foot tall man on your campus, there are a lot of steps involved. So I'll share some of those with you today. So first, we wanted to know a bit more about his history. Who is this tall man that means so much? He's large in stature, both symbolically and physically. He stood originally for the sardine industry, and he continues to stand in kind of honor of Maine's hardworking fisheries, canneries, seafood industry, and just a general sense of the hard work of Mainers. Big Jim was originally erected on Route 1 in Kittery in 1959. He stood along the busy entrance to Maine and welcomed visitors to both Sardineland and Vacationland. In his original form, he was 2-sided and built of plywood. Big Jim was designed and installed by the Maine Sardine Council. So the Maine Sardine Council was the state of Maine department responsible for promoting Maine sardines, both throughout the state, regionally, nationally, and internationally for many decades. And here's a great insider flyer that shows kind of them telling the Mr. Grocer the work that they're doing in creative ways, like through Big Jim, to promote the Maine sardine and boost sales. So they had research arms, they had marketing arms. They really boosted the industry. And we're very fortunate to hold their institutional archive here at the museum. So we have advertising, other ephemera, we have photographs, we have artifacts, all that came from the Maine Sardine Council. So these were a major part of how we built our Sardineland exhibit. And in fact, it was the Maine Sardine Council who named Big Jim. People wonder where he got his name. Word is that he was named for James Warren, who was the director of the Maine Sardine Council, as well as working for the R.J. Peacock Canning Company in Eastport. So here he is with the 1980 Maine Sardine Queen, Virginia McCaslin. Well, Big Jim didn't stay in Kittery, as you probably can imagine. Um, Things changed in terms of how visitors approached the state, and Route 1 traffic got redirected on the highway, and we don't know the exact timeline. It's hard to piece together of exactly when he came down. But we do know that in the late 1960s, Big Jim reappeared and was moved to Prospect Harbor and stationed outside the Stinson Cannery. So at that time, he was remade as a one-sided aluminum rather than plywood structure. And over time, he's been repainted in many different forms with different expressions, colors, and different items in his hand. So here, instead of welcoming you more generally to Sardine Land and Vacation Land, he's very clearly branded for the Stinson Canning Company. And you can see how that evolved until in 2010, the Stinson Sardine Cannery closed, and it was the last operating cannery in the United States. So a big part of the story that we're telling in Sardine Land. Imagine an industry that was along our coast for nearly 2 centuries, closing in 2010, and the impact that that made on so many communities. An enterprising lobster processor changed Jim's sardine can to a lobster trap, and that is how he stands today. But the Big Jim in our mind's eye, that bold, bright Maine Sardine Council advertisement, is a little bit different than how he looks today. He's a little bit weathered, maybe a little bit sad. He's holding a worn lobster trap. And so as we started thinking about bringing Big Jim to our campus, we were thinking about a very different Big Jim than how he looks today. And that's when we realized that really he was in need of restoration and he deserved that. And so did the industries of Maine that he stands for. And that was when we decided that we should take that project on and lead a community initiative to raise the funds and figure out how to get Big Jim from Prospect Harbor, to restore him, put him up on our campus, and share him and return him to the community that he is such a part of the heart of now. So our first question was, who could help us move this giant sign? And we thought of Dan Miller at Belmont Boatworks. Dan has been a great friend to the museum and to the community. He has a creative spirit, he's very community minded, and he has a crane. So when we talked to Dan, he got very excited about this idea. Dan has helped us do other great projects like move our large camera obscura. Every year he helps put up the Belfast Christmas tree. And recently he delivered a very heavy bronze statue of a sea captain to Searsport and helped put that in place. So as you can see, Dan dove right into this project. He went up to visit Big Jim, helped to look at how he was put together, climbed right up those I-beams, and started giving us some ideas of how we might be able to take the 12 aluminum panels apart, because moving him whole would just be too complicated. We could carefully take him apart, and then Dan could give us space where we could prepare the surface of him for restoration. But then we also needed to figure out, okay, so even if we can handle all of that, how do we put him up in Searsport? So we turned to our friend David Wyman, who's a retired naval architect. And I love this photo because you can see that he uses the tools that we would love all naval inspired people to use. He's using a sextant here to measure the height of Big Jim so he can start to draw a plan for a structure that we could build here in Searsport. Leave behind the I-beams where they are because they're basically sunk into a granite ledge, take the pieces, restore him, reconstruct him on a framework here in Searsport that would be safe and secure against weather. And so he measured him, and insider knowledge, he's only 31 feet, but 40 sounds much better. So we'll go with that. That's the legend. So 31-foot Big Jim, and David has drawn a drawing of how we can construct a platform and anchor it to hold him here. And he's even created a means where we could carefully lower him down to rest if we have a major hurricane or storm coming our way. So you can see how all these pieces have taken time and care. So then our next question is, okay, this is great. This is totally possible, but who can restore him? Well, we're very fortunate that we have other community members that are experts in murals. The WOW Collective, which stands for Women on Walls. It's a group of local female artists. We love the idea of working with them to carry on the tradition of all of the women who work so hard in the canneries all up and down the coast. And they also have great experience. So knowledge of the materials we would need, the approach that would work. Many of them painted sidewalks in Belfast for their initiative to put murals on the streets. Many of them also have panels on the side of the installation at Waterfall Arts. And I just love this photo of them in front of the Bonner Farm Stand mural that they completed this summer. So we'll be working with them on the restoration and know they will do an incredible job. But of course, then we also had to face the fact that Big Jim is not our sign. So how do we get permission to take someone else's property and do this wild project? Well, as I mentioned, the sign stands in front of what was once the Stinson Sardine Cannery. The property has changed hands over many times over many years, and in fact was changing hands as we were making plans. By then, we're into last fall when the facility became the property of Bold Coast Seafood. Well, fortunately, Bold Coast loves Big Jim. It's owned by members of the community and people who've been engaged in the seafood industry for a long time. And they really see the symbol of him as being an important part of their industry and their community. So they've been happy to work with us to work through the logistics of figuring out how they can sort of lend us Big Jim while we take care of him and return him to them. So we're thrilled that they are a partner with us and that they have a commitment to bringing Big Jim back to his community. Because that community has been so important, we've also built a partnership with the Goldsboro Historical Society, which is the broader community where Prospect Harbor is located. The members of that historical society have been great at helping us make the connections we need in the community. And they have spoken a lot about what Big Jim means to them because he has stood there so long. We're all committed to working together to raise the funds, to care for him, and to get him back home. And here you can see an example of a project that the Goldsboro Historical Society did. They know that he will be much missed while he is out for renovation and visiting us here in Searsport. So they worked with local artists and community members to have people design small Big Jims that will be throughout the community while he is away. And this was also a bit of a fundraiser for them so that they can be stewards for Big Jim going forward into the future. because we want to know that he will be cared for once he's returned. So that's kind of an overview of all of the kind of physical, logistical, tangible planning that we've been doing. But as you can imagine, there's also kind of the behind the scenes pieces that we wanted to make sure that we had in place to take care with the project. So we've worked with the town of Searsport to secure permission to mount Big Jim as a temporary exhibit right on Route 1, and shared our plans for how we will safely be doing that. Of course, we wanted to make sure that we had the insurance we needed for the restoration and for displaying him. We wanted to make sure we had a memorandum of understanding. So if we're taking the sign from Bold Coast Seafood, we're all clear on who has what responsibilities. And of course, we also needed to launch fundraising. We really wanted to see the fundraising as a community effort and not think of it as that the museum is paying for this project. We wanted to be the leaders in a project that meant something to so many people. And it has been an incredible process. We put together a budget of about $30,000 that we need to support Big Jim and his restoration and return. And that budget will cover using a crane to take Big Jim down piece by piece in Prospect Harbor, transporting him to Belmont Boatworks, where his restoration will take place, stripping, priming, and repainting his 12 aluminum panels, restoring him to his original 1959 colors and design in collaboration with local artists, installing him right here on our campus for the season. So he'll be up all through the next season if all goes well. And then taking him down, restoring, bringing him back to Prospect Harbor for permanent display later in the year. And then, of course, all of the insurance costs and other costs along the way are all included in that budget. It has been an amazing process because we've had so many great donors. As I mentioned, some of them are here today. And the fun part of all of this is the scope of the number of people who have donated and the stories that they have brought with their gifts. We are over $24,000 now. We can notch up the graph here to show that. And we have brought in donations from all over the country: Alaska, California, Florida, Iowa, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Rhode Island, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, Washington State, and Wisconsin, and of course, Maine. We've heard from people who donated because they remember as children driving into Maine and knowing they'd arrived when they saw Big Jim. We've had people donate because they have connections to the sardine industry. They worked in a cannery or were involved in the herring fishery. We've had people who are just thrilled to have something exciting and prominent right here in Searsport and draw people in. And other people who just love the story of Big Jim and the industries that he stands for. And we're so appreciative of all of you who have given, and we're very close to our goal. We also have received sponsorships from Hamilton Marine, Northern Tilt, and Tenji Incorporated, and supporter level from GoLogic. We couldn't have made this without all of our community. And the fun part is that most all of these donors have been new donors. So taking care that this won't impact the operations at the museum, but that this is a unique and exciting project for so many people. And I think probably a lot of what I've said so far gives a sense of why we chose to take this on. But I pulled just a few images from our collection and from our exhibit, just to give you a sense of some of the people and communities that we hope to draw attention to, both in our exhibit and by bringing Big Jim. The herring fisheries, the people who have worked in the canneries, in communities up and down the coast. Here we have Rita Willie with her trophy as a 5-time sardine packing champion, and she came to our Sardine Fest this summer, which was really fun. but just to see all of the people and communities that have been involved and kind of what that means to us. And here we have some of the last days of the Stinson cannery and what that's meant to the communities. Part of what we hope to capture in our exhibit too is what does it mean for communities when these industries go away, and that sense of community and connection that people found through them. So that's been an important part of capturing those stories as well.